One thing that can damper a series' reputation are the misconceptions. Whether it's from not understanding the series, ignoring the context, or just straight up having a different viewpoint. Sometimes, this can cause a series to be viewed very differently than it was intended. And one series that's been ravished by misconception is Katekyo Hitman Reborn. And so naturally, we gotta discuss Reborn's many misconceptions. And I say we because today I have 3 great Reborn creators along with me today to help set the record straight. So shout out Yogi, Red Decimo, and Kimi's Domain for joining me.
The segment I'm talking about now is what I'm most famous for, defending the main protagonist of Hitman Reborn. If you are one of those people who still genuinely thinks that Tsuna is a badly written character in general, or even just the idea of having a protagonist like Tsuna just kills a series ultimately, then all I can tell you at this point is to watch my video on this exact topic. It's 1 hour long, and all the misconceptions and points surrounding him are already addressed and cleared up, but all facts and evidence came straight from the manga. His wimpy personality being warranted, I cleared it up. Him quote-unquote resetting his character arc each time when he really isn't, I cleared it up. The fact that his normal self and hyper mode self are one and the same, I cleared it up. The ending of which he doesn't become a mafia boss but still had a great conclusion where he finally accepts himself as a person, I certainly cleared it up as well. Suppose you watched the whole video and you somehow still don't agree, that's totally acceptable. But if you're still gonna continue to spread hate for a main character just for not understanding him better, then at this point, you're only embarrassing yourselves with how many W's you're giving me. Proving more that basic reading comprehension skills is for some reason hard to master, or rather than taking an honest look at things.
Based upon my research, I could not find any actual documentations, articles, or anything of that sort indicating that the anime was cancelled. So just so you guys will know, Reborn's anime was from 2006 and concluded in 2010 with a total of 203 episodes, whereas the manga was from May of 2004 and concluded in November of 2012. Obviously, if you guys don't know, now you know today, but anime is just another medium that is meant to promote majority of manga. If anything, around 85 to 90% of anime is promotion for their manga counterpart, and that same ruling is applied to Reborn. Now, also with the studio that did produce Reborn during its heydays, Artland Studios, has officially been announced as bankrupt since 2017. More likely, they filed between the years of 2015 or 2016 and fully went through bankruptcy in the year of 2017. With Reborn's anime ending in 2010, the best conclusion and probable conclusion that I could come up with, and that makes the most sense, is that Reborn's anime was catching up very quickly to the manga. Mind you, the manga did end 2 arcs later after the conclusion from the 10-year arc, which the anime fully wrapped up. Also, the fact that if you look on Artland's other projects that came after Reborn before the bankruptcy in 2017, it can only make sense that more than likely Artland did want to continue with Reborn, but of course of the situations that they had with the production studios and everything, that was not likely possible. So that's the best conclusion that I could come up with because there's no facts or anything saying otherwise. This brings me into my next segment. Is Reborn truly the worst manga in manga history? Now, I know we all have seen, or some of you have seen, posts or videos circulating online saying otherwise. Saying that, this is a trash, or this is a mid-series, nobody should read it, yada yada yada. But are they telling you the facts behind the massive success of such a mid-series? And I mean by over 30 million volumes in circulation to this day. I'm talking about if we want to take a trip down memory lane, with volumes 1 to 14 being 7 million volumes in circulation, and it being the 10th best-selling series of 2007. 2008 It was the 4th best-selling series of that year, stated by Oricon doing a survey of the top 50, and Reborn was number 4. If you want to also, within recent times, they condensed all 42 volumes into 2-in-1, also known as Bunko volumes, from September of 2017 to November of 2018. All 409 chapters in 2019 was put into a huge e-digital manga book. I also want to state that even Reborn had 3 stage plays covering from the daily life arc all the way up to the 10-year arc. If we want to account for even more recent news, in January of this year alone, 2024, Discotek is going to sell Blu-ray and DVDs of 3 fan favorite episodes from Reborn's anime, consisting of 1, 20, and 77 in English dub. And if it does successfully, we will be getting more, possibly. Also, for the fact that Reborn has continuously been selling merchandise, which is being sold out every time you go looking for either a hoodie or a pin or a figurine since 2016. And also, all 42 volumes has been fully translated in French, I believe between the years of 2018 or 2019. And there's so much more that I can talk about, but I have limited time. So again, for anyone that wants to make their opinion into a fact, please do bring up the articles or any forums or anything of that sort that can debunk anything I just said today.
I've already made a video on this long ago, defending the ending of Hitman Reborn. So I could pretty much say watch the video, case closed and ended here, but for the sake of consistency, I'll be talking about this briefly with the best of my ability. The reason why the ending is so hated, mostly in the West, is due to how many are under the misconception that the main goal of the series overall is for Tsuna to accept his role as a mafia boss. When in reality, the actual theme of the series is not as simple as you may think, as it is about Tsuna enduring all the harsh moments that's brought upon his life while not changing his good morals. This is a fact, as it is explicitly shown from these panels here that hints furthermore on Tsuna's goal. Being a mafia boss wasn't the main point for Tsuna. His actual goal is to protect his friends from the mafia war that's brought upon them. Him accepting himself despite his flaws, lacking talents, his intellectual skills, but is still supported by his friends around him, the friends that changed him for the better in a sense, making him a better person, being more confident, kind, feeling loved for his kindness, is actually better than accepting his role as a mafia boss. There's nothing wrong with a protagonist that chooses to live a normal life, going on with his life like the way he wants. And besides, he didn't need to prove himself anymore. He saved Reborn, he impacted his friends, he took care of the most annoying characters, changed bad people for the better. Overall, Tsuna has changed as a character, just not as drastically as other protagonists.
Hi, I'm Yogi, residential Hitman Reborn fan and content creator, here to talk to you about misconceptions, specifically the misconception that the first 20 episodes are filler. Now, maybe the people who say this haven't read the manga or know the story/theory behind the series, right? That being that the manga started off as a gag, slice-of-life comedy story, right? But after 61 chapters, it was turned into a battle shonen. Now, the anime followed the manga, but not for too long, And the anime was only 19. Let me repeat that because a lot of people get this wrong. 19 episodes that were slice of life at the beginning. After that, it goes into the Kikuya Land arc and becomes a battle shonen, but it also continues to have some of the slice of life episodes between the arcs, the major, battle ones, which I like to call cooldown episodes, which I wish more anime did too. Now, I understand that the first 19 episodes are different, right? Way different from the episodes that come after that, but that doesn't make it filler, These are things that actually happen in the manga, so automatically that just already makes it canon, right? But also, it just shouldn't be skipped either, like how a lot of people have been saying, like, oh, well, here's an episode guide where you should skip these episodes. No, most of them are dumb, And honestly, even the ones when they include the important bits, it's still like just better to watch all of it. These episodes are used to introduce us to the characters and their dynamics with each other. We see how they are and how they interact with each other, you know? And all this time, we actually get the feeling of, oh yeah, this is actually a group of friends, you know, who can actually become like a family. And there's also that scene too in the Varya arc where Tsuna tells Gokudera that they're not fighting for the rings, but are fighting to live, you know, and watch the fireworks together again. And that scene hits really hard, right? But that's only because you watch all the slice of life episodes where we actually saw them at a festival watching the fireworks together. Like when we watch those episodes, we see how they act outside of the life-threatening craziness that happens later, right? And we empathize more with Tsuna, who wants to go back to those regular crazy days, you know, instead of the life-threatening ones. Like, think about it, right? If you're a fan of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, then you know it's a great show, right? But let's be honest, that second half, that's like, it's crazy, right? Like the first half is still good, right? But it's not as epically awesome as the second half, you know? You know, it's probably more like, you know, the first 10, 20 episodes, you know, but still. Now, but like, imagine if people just said, oh yeah, you could just skip the first episode, you know, it's filler. Watch episode 2, skip 3, you don't need to see that one. Keep watching, skip 11 and 12, and keep going, I guess. Skip 17, and boom, there you go, you're good. Those people would sound stupid and be stupid, just like certain people's episode guides for Hitman Reborn, you know? Because it's like, just watch it, you know? Because like, it just doesn't make sense. And I don't understand why people say that with Hitman Reborn, you know? I haven't heard anyone say it with Gintama, and that goes from Gag the Battle Shonen multiple times, you know? And I'm pretty sure that like the first episode is like actually filler or something. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me with that. But yeah. You know what I think though? People are just impatient. It's that, and it's a combination that they can't like sit back and have this mindset of like, okay, this is just a slice of life comedy show, right? And I should just, you know, just try to enjoy it, you know? Obviously comedy is subjective and all that too, but still, like, take it in, watch it, enjoy the moment before it actually changes into something better, you know? Because then those better moments are gonna hit even harder now that you know everything that came before it.
One of the worst misconceptions I've ever heard about Reborn is that Reborn falls off after the Future arc. I'm not gonna even lie to you. I don't even know where this came from. I didn't even know this was an actual like misconception that people had. I think a big reason that people think that Reborn fell off after the Future arc is because the next 2 arcs after the Future arc are actually 2 manga exclusive arcs. Just the way they're structured, manga exclusive arcs are just never going to be as popular or never going to have as much hype as an arc that has an anime associated with it. There are people that love the series that don't even know or haven't even seen the last 2 arcs of Reborn. Looking at the 2 arcs, which are the Inheritance Ceremony and the Curse of the Rainbow arc, I actually think that these are 2 of the best, if not the best arcs in the series. But before we discuss why those arcs are amazing, let's discuss the misconception about the fall off of Reborn. One of the other takes that people have with Reborn falling off is that the fact that the sales kind of dropped because of the quality. And I've got to be honest with you. The sales did kind of drop with Reborn the last 2 arcs, but it's not really due to quality. It's a big thing that arcs that aren't animated tend to not have as much exposure. You can look at 1,000 Year Blood War and Bleach, the Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest. You can look at arcs that are manga only and compare them to arcs that have anime, and they are just never going to do as well. So you have to kind of acknowledge that when you're looking at those 2 arcs. That's kind of touching upon that point. But now that we kind of touched upon that, it's about time for me to discuss why these 2 arcs are amazing. When it comes to the Inheritance Ceremony and the Curse of the Rainbow arc, I've honestly always felt that these 2 arcs were necessary for the story because they make the story come full circle. The Curse of the Rainbow arc specifically explained the origin of the Vendice and the Arcobaleno after hundreds of chapters of foreshadowing them. We had always kind of seen glimpses of how strong the Arcobaleno were, but besides Reborn and maybe like Coleno, we didn't know much about them at all. And we get to see everything about them. And one thing I do love about the arc that actually introduces or kind of explains their origin is that we actually get to see each Arcobaleno showcase their unique skill set, because everyone who knows Reborn knows that the Arcobaleno are known as the 7 strongest. This last arc did a really good job of showcasing the full power of the Arcobaleno while also not overshadowing the main character, you know, the Vongola family. Looking at the Vendice, we got to see the whole connection with the Vendice and see why they're connected to the Mafia. Another huge reason why the last 2 arcs are, in my opinion, some of the best arcs in Reborn are because of the character dynamics and character developments. We're going to touch upon the Inheritance Ceremony arc a little bit here now, but the Inheritance Ceremony arc had a format for fights in which they had to state their pride ahead of their respective fights. And one thing that I do love about this is this served to give us insight on both the Vongola and the Simone family and what they valued. A character that kind of gets a lot of slander in the community is Lambo. A lot of people think he's a bad character, things like that. But this arc actually went out of its way to show 15-year-old Lambo, and he got to explain how he felt growing up, how he felt watching the older Guardians as a kid. I want to hurry up and grow up so I can be a part of this world with them. We get to see a lot of the Guardians and how they kind of view Tsuna. Lambo straight up says Tsuna's not a good boss, but he's a good big brother, which is more important. I think this arc especially was the perfect arc, in my opinion, that cemented Tsuna's group as the rightful heirs of the Vongola. And I think this kind of has to do with how the Guardians all kind of fit their mold. Another great moment I have is when Hibari helps Tsuna regains his confidence and resolve by getting him to really understand what his pride is. Hibari's example is discipline. And he says discipline is something that I'll never give up no matter what. But the important distinction is that it's not because it's his pride that he'll never give it up. It's because he can never give it up that makes it his pride. And that sticks with Tsuna because it really makes him think about what is something that is near and dear to your heart that you can't give up no matter what. We see Hibari is just doing what the perfect Cloud Guardian should do. It's only the sky that allows the clouds to float freely. This honestly just kind of cements Hibari as the Cloud Guardian of the Vongola boss. We are looking at the next generation of the Vongola. Switching to the Curse of the Rainbow arc, we got to see Tsuna's growth as a student and as a Vongola boss. We have a moment in which we kind of find out that the Arcobaleno are all destined to die. You know, he's been living his whole life basically up until now, knowing that he'd probably die a dog's death. This makes Tsuna snap. He straight up scolded him, saying, "You betrayed me this entire time knowing you die a dog's death? You're a failure of a home tutor. It's my turn to teach you, Reborn. I won't let you die." To me, this is the point in the character development of Tsuna and Reborn's relationship, where they go from student and teacher to younger brother and older brother. And then after that, we get easily my favorite scene in the entire series. Like, if you know me and I talk about Reborn, this moment will come up at some point in time. After an attempt to beat the final villain, Bermuda, who basically, spoilers, is the strongest Arcobaleno, we come to find out, Tsuna gathers up all of his allies, enemies, everyone to fight beside him. He gathers them under one roof, and it's like, I need y'all to fight with me. And when I say everyone, I'm talking about everyone. I'm talking about Dino's there, Hibari, who hates crowds, is there, Byakuran is there. Every single person that Tsuna's come across, he basically is like, yo, I need you to fight with me. To see Tsuna get that kind of respect from allies and villains alike, that is the definition of the Vongola boss. I can't even view Reborn as a series as highly as I do if these last two scenes didn't exist. It honestly just makes Reborn a complete series. And it's weird, but if for some reason these two arcs didn't exist or I stopped watching after the anime ended, I don't think Reborn would be one of my favorite series of all time. Reborn needs these two arcs. These scenes made me look at Reborn and just think this is one of the best anime I've ever seen. There's no way Reborn would be Reborn without these arcs. One of the misconceptions about Katekyo Hitman Reborn that's always struck me the wrong way is that people think that the point of KHR is to be a mafia boss. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand where that comes from. I understand the point of that. We literally have Tsuna every couple chapters being told that he needs to be the boss. That's something that Reborn always tells him. All of the villains in all of the arcs of Reborn are somehow or somewhat related to the Vongola. Tsuna, in an attempt to beat these villains, becomes more and more Vongola-like. But that's the thing about Reborn. While Tsuna is thrown into the world of the Mafia, this isn't the point of KHR. A big theme in Reborn is how this mega responsibility is thrusted on Tsuna, but that doesn't really mean Tsuna has to do it. Tsuna's gonna do things his way. It just so happens that Tsuna's goals happen to correspond with the path of the Vongola boss. Honestly, just think about it real quick. In the future arc, the Vongola family were sent into the future against their will, and they weren't able to return until they were able to beat Byakuran. That was the premise of that arc. Or you can look at the inheritance ceremony arc, where the beginning of it was just basically get back after they got jumped by the Simone family. We literally have Tsuna repeatedly telling Reborn every single time he's like, I don't care about being the Vongola boss. That's not important to me. Reborn has always been and will always be about protecting what you love most and being of high moral standing. Look at Giotto and why he made the Vongola in the first place. They weren't intended to be the mafia like we kind of see now. They were actually intended to be a vigilant group that kind of helped the people. It's stated many times that the Vongola only started to become corrupt after the second Vongola boss took over. The only person who can bring the Vongola back to their former glory is someone who behaves like Giotto. And I've always kind of felt like it was implied that if Gyouto was born in this era and the Vongola were already a real thing and were already established, Gyouto would be a lot like Tsuna. And a great scene I honestly really love is the Vongola trial in the future arc. So in the Vongola trial, Tsuna is summoned in front of all the Vongola bosses. He's shown basically all the past sins of the Vongola. Tsuna's seeing all the deaths and all the many casualties that the Vongola have accrued over the years. While he's losing his mind, all the other Vongola bosses are like, okay, give in to the quote-unquote greatness of the Vongola and accept our sins. And Tsuna's like, I'm not going to accept this. And if you make me accept this, then I'll destroy the Vongola completely. When you look at the scene, it's not the answer the Vongolas were expecting. We see all the Vongolas except for Gyouto were shocked. But one thing I like about it is, even though that was a different answer than what they were expecting, that answer still gained him Vongola Primo's approval. What does that tell you? This tells me, at least, despite clearly being different than the past Vongola bosses, Gyouto still believes that Tsuna is worthy of the Vongola's succession. This is an important distinction with Tsuna, where Tsuna will follow the path of the Vongola boss, but if at any point in time, fighting for his friends and being the Vongola boss are not mutually inclusive, Tsuna will always pick the former. That is just how he is as a character. Tsuna straight up reprimands Goku Dare for almost throwing his life away when they're fighting the warrior arc for the Vongola half rings. There's no point of fighting if we can't all go home and laugh together. It's actually kind of funny because when Tsuna is the most quote-unquote Vongola boss-like, he's really just doing what he feels is right. The series always rewards doing the right thing, and that is what Reborn's all about.
So, you come to me once again on the day of my daughter's wedding just to ask me, why is it that people think Hitman Reborn does nothing with this mafia genre? Because they are foolish, that's why. Ooh, no, don't smoke, kids. Seriously, don't do that. Anyway, I'm gonna try to not waste any more of your time with this one. This misconception is just a very weird one, you know, seeing as we're talking about anime, which is known for its wacky premises. And there's also the tiny little fact that we're talking about a fictional world that's different from ours. I feel like the only reason people say this is because when they hear mafia, they imagine like a certain image, you know, a certain act, you know, maybe, you know, Italians, maybe even some New Yorkers in suits and mustaches and guns, you know, doing underworld crime stuff. Not Italians and Japanese people using flames that aren't really flames to fight each other, you know. But it's a weird thing to say / complain about. Their world is not like ours, right? There's nothing saying that because they have a mafia that it has to be just like ours. Maybe people are like, oh, maybe it's because we don't really see it. But it's like, yeah, we're following a main character who doesn't want to be a part of it, you know? The whole main premise of the show is for someone to try and train him to be a mafia leader when he's not ready to be one and when he doesn't want to be one, you know? So of course we're not really going to see a bunch of it, but of course we do still see some of it, you know, when it happens, you know, when it comes up every now and then. But like I said, it's a weird thing to complain about, you know? I mean, there's Naruto, which is an anime about ninjas, and yet they're throwing fireballs and lightning and making clones of themselves instead of being quiet and assassinating people. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think ninjas can do that in the real world, or could do that, you know, when they were still things. And what about One Piece, you know? Pirates were real, but I don't think they had power that came from eating potentially cursed fruit that made them not be able to swim, you know? And the ability to turn their willpower into things like armor or clairvoyance. Like, yeah, they had like the boats in the water, you know, but like calm belt, what the heck is that? Have you ever seen Luffy plunder? Where's all the disease? Where's the scurvy, you know? Like, where's all that at? So this misconception / complaint that people like to use as criticism is just dumb to me because it's anime, right? And this anime, like many others, will take things from our world and use them in different ways in theirs. There's not much else to say about it. They take the mafia in our world and they just changed it a little bit, made it more creative, you know? And it's not bad. They share some things that we do, but then they also add their own little twist of things. And that's it. It's just not much else to say about it.
Now, I'm not exactly sure how specific this bad take is meant to interpretate, whether it's Ryohei, Lambo, and Chrome being weak characters in terms of strength or in terms of personality. But since it's not being specific, I've decided to cover them both at the same time in one topic. I'll be starting off with personality because it's much more easier for me to cover. Ryohei, while obviously may not have anything special to casual readers, he has plenty of crucial moments from the Varia, Future, and most especially in Inheritance Ceremony arc. He may start off as a typical loudmouth, boxing obsession character, but he warms up in the end to become someone that actually cares about the family, and in a way, develops them to make them realize how they can grow. Like in the Future arc, when the 10-year later Ryohei told Gokudera during his fight with Gamma not to panic, knowing his anxiety for not protecting Tsuna. How he and Tsuna didn't want the girls to know about the Mafia undergoings in the future arc, and how the boycott situation impacted them. More on that later. One of my favorite moments was in the Inheritance Ceremony arc, where he believes that Tsuna has pride. He just doesn't know that it exists within him yet. It's what made him realize what really made Tsuna proud the whole time, because his friends accepted him for who he was. Being the older brother of the group, we saw how Ryohei protected them and at the same time made them realize their growth. I've discussed Lambo in the past in my shorts video. Hitting a 5-year-old is honestly just pretty stupid. It's not like he doesn't have any redeeming qualities either. He also has his own moments in the Inheritance Ceremony arc where he finally sees Tsuna as an older brother to him, which is something endearing when you think of the fact that his previous family abandoned him. Chrome, arguably one of the most well-written female characters in the series, just right there with Lal Merch, also had a great trajectory within the manga. She went from being dependent on Mukuro in order to survive, from someone who found her own self-worth. Again, I don't think weakest would be the correct word, as I personally think overshadowed would be a more accurate term, as even though they have some nice developments, they're not often much of a star, especially in the merchandise, which don't even get me started. That doesn't make them weak in strength either. Ryohei was able to punch a building during the Vare arc with just one swing. And if the entire group were to fight without any weapons, I give my money on Ryohei on this one. Not to mention he fought characters from the Simon arc, who are all belong on the strongest family, despite their reputation. Plus, he also has one of the best fights in the Varia with Lusaria, where he's able to punch even with his eyes closed. As for Lambo being the weakest, I don't really agree with this one. He's not weak, he just has a limit. Having a fatal limit and being the weakest member have two different meanings. Just because Lambo has a time limit for his 10-year bazooka ability doesn't necessarily mean he's the weakest. We clearly saw how he was able to nearly defeat against Leviathan, and I can guarantee with that one final strike, if it wasn't for the time limit, Lambo would have won that for sure. Plus, he was also one of the members who also unlocked one of the Vongola gear abilities. As for Chrome being the weakest, this is also I don't agree either. I mean, it is true that she often gets overshadowed by Mukuro's mist abilities. You have to remember how strong the mist flames really are, and being able to create something out of nothing, making fake illusions real, and making real illusions fake. We saw this when she battled Glossinia, this jerk, and the fact that she was able to create her own organs without being dependent on Mukuro Rukudo, which I thought was a plus. Oh, and yeah, fun fact about Chrome as well. In the fight with Tsuna, Enma, and Daemon Spad, Chrome manages to create a very powerful illusion shield even though she herself was half injured during the fight, protecting herself as well as Enma. And as soon as Tsuna shoots his double X burner towards Daemon Spad, Chrome and Enma were able to survive together, which, keep in mind, the double X burner is the same attack that Tsuna used on Enma's black holes, which, as we already established from Reborn, is an attack that is just as strong as the Big Bang. So the fact that Chrome survived this is actually pretty impressive. Again, I don't think they're the weakest, I just think overshadowed would be a better term. Personally, I'm mixed with this one. I'm not gonna pretend that the female characters themselves are the best part of the series because I do acknowledge that their biggest weakness is that there isn't much development nor significant moments they have besides the future arc. Although they have little to no significance, I wouldn't say they're completely useless. Arguably one of the biggest popular complaints about Reborn is that it has little to no female fighters whatsoever, and there are a lot of sexist in the writing. Even though there's clearly already a lot of female fighters, I already talked about Chrome Dukuro, you could count Bianchi, Ipin as female fighters, but there's also Lalmerch, Bluebell, Suzuki Aldihead, and even Daniela, who, keep in mind, is the only female in the Vongola family to possess a Sky Flame and is a main heir boss. This complaint for some reason always seems to center around both Kyoko and Haru, specifically as one of the most infamous scenes revolving around the two was notably in the future arc, where it shows them doing nothing but kitchen work and of course the boycott situation. This is where the hate of both the readers and the fandom began. Let me make one thing clear, that the main point of Reborn is to have characters who are used to the mundane life of the daily life and drag them in a battle shonen arc that conflicts to the normal world. Amano basically created an element that most shonens are known for, a story arc where it's completely unnatural to our world, such as time traveling, hence the main theme of the future arc, and have them to bargain in a situation they're thrown in. The boycott scene itself is a situation that neither the boys or the girls are correct. Yes, it is wrong to start a boycott and add stress to the boys, but it isn't correct to just leave the girls hanging without telling them. I know it's for obvious reasons, but it's not like the girls will continue to just go with the flow all the time. They can't always be like that, and seeing them getting angry and worried about them is reasonable. Tsuna and Ryohei are very much against the idea of telling them what's going on for the sake of protecting them, so you can't just blame one party and not blame the other. Neither of them are correct, neither of them are wrong. I would argue that if Kyoko and Haru were never sent to the future, being completely absent with only just Chrome and Bianchi for example, that would objectively make them useless. For the fact that Amano put them specifically in the previous 3 arcs, only to be completely irrelevant in the future arc, which is one of the most important story arcs in Reborn besides the last 2 final arcs. Plus, it's not like all they do is kitchen work, as with Haru's esteemed support reminding him of how much he will support him led Tsuna to create the X-Burner. Kyoko's emotional support led him to control and overcome his anxiety to tame his box weapon. They don't only help Tsuna to grow as a fighter, but also as a person. Now you might think, wouldn't anyone just teach Tsuna those things? Anyone could have done it, like Reborn for example, because he is his tutor. But no, Reborn no longer teaches him anything other than giving him vague hints or advices, mostly for the sole purpose is to let Tsuna decide what to do. Reborn did taught him how to ride on the motorbike, though, but I wouldn't count it since it is his first time learning. And besides, it's not like how it was in the Varia arc, where Reborn teaches him literally everything. So, in a sense, Kyoko and Haru did something that not even Reborn himself could do. One notable female character that possesses one seriously impressive feat is the Sky Arcobaleno princess herself, Uni, sacrificing herself to revive the past Arcobalenos and dies. Something that none of the boys or the male character has done. And while it is clear that Uni made an appearance in the final arc later on, her character is a reminder of what she goes through from Byakuran's timeline. And with her importance makes her one of the most underrated female characters in the series, as well as one of my favorites, besides Chrome Dukuro.
Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. I'm going to have everyone's YouTube channels in the description, so definitely check them out. But that's all, so peace.